The laughter started the moment Vanessa walked through Mom's front door. She swept in late as usual, designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor, Derek trailing behind carrying shopping bags. Their kids rushed past, already demanding snacks. "Sorry we're late," Vanessa announced to everyone at the dining table. "Traffic from the new house is terrible. You know how it is living in the expensive neighborhoods." I looked down at my plate. Sunday lunch at our parents' house was supposed to be about family, but lately it felt like Vanessa's personal stage. Mom smiled weakly and passed the potatoes. Dad kept eating, pretending not to notice the tension. The conversation drifted to safe topics until Vanessa turned to me. "So Claire, still in that tiny apartment downtown?" Her voice dripped with fake concern. "Yes," I said quietly. "It works for me." She laughed. "How do you even breathe in that shoebox?" Derek and I could barely fit our walk-in closet in a space that small. Everyone laughed. Even Mom giggled nervously. I felt my face burning, but I stayed silent, fork frozen halfway to my mouth. I drove home in silence, Vanessa's words echoing in my head. The city lights blurred past my window as I replayed every laugh, every pitying look from around that table. My apartment building looked small and tired compared to the fancy houses I'd passed. I climbed the stairs to the third floor, unlocked my door, and stepped inside. It was small. Just a studio with a tiny kitchen area, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in, and one main room that served as bedroom, living room, and everything else. But it was clean. It was mine. I'd worked hard to afford even this much on my hospital salary. I sat on my bed and let the tears finally come. Why did Vanessa always make me feel so worthless? We used to be close as kids. Somewhere along the way, after she married Derek, the successful lawyer, she'd changed. Or maybe I'd just finally noticed who she really was. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom: "Don't let Vanessa get to you, honey." Too late. 3 days later, my landlord called. Mr. Phillips was a nice older man who'd always been fair about rent. "Claire, I have some news," he said, his voice apologetic. "The building's been sold. New owners are taking over in 60 days. They're not renewing any leases." "I'm sorry." My stomach dropped. 60 days? That's it? "I'm afraid so. They're planning renovations. Everyone has to go." I hung up and stared at the wall. 60 days to find a new apartment in a city where rent climbed higher every month. 60 days to pack up my life and start over. Sunday lunch came again. I told my parents about losing my apartment. Mom's face filled with worry. Dad just shrugged and said housing was tough everywhere. Vanessa smiled. "Guess downsizing wasn't small enough, huh?" Derek looked uncomfortable, but he didn't defend me. I forced a smile and said, "Don't worry about me. I'll be fine." For the first time, I meant it. Something inside me had shifted. I was done being her punching bag. At the hospital where I worked as a nurse, I helped an older patient named Mr. Wallace back into bed. He was a retired architect, recovering from hip surgery, and we'd become friendly over his week-long stay. "You seem stressed today," he observed. I hesitated, then told him about my apartment situation. He listened carefully, his wise eyes studying me. "I own a property," he said slowly. "It's been sitting empty for 2 years. Nothing fancy, needs work. But I'm looking for someone trustworthy to rent to own. Someone who'll care for it properly." My heart jumped. "Really? Come see it Saturday. If you like it, we'll work something out. I'd rather help someone like you than deal with investors." That Saturday, I drove to the address he'd given me. The house sat on a quiet street, hidden behind overgrown bushes. The paint was peeling, the porch sagged slightly, and dust covered every window. But beneath the neglect, I saw beautiful bones. High ceilings, original hardwood floors, and a detached garage and back. "I'll take it," I said. The next 8 weeks became a blur of painting, scrubbing, and YouTube tutorials. I worked my hospital shifts, then came home and worked on the house until midnight. Every muscle ached, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. I painted walls, pulled weeds, fixed loose boards on the porch. Slowly, the house transformed. It wasn't perfect, but it was becoming home. One afternoon, Vanessa's car pulled up unannounced. She climbed out, designer sunglasses perched on her head, and stared at the house. "This is where you're living now?" She laughed. "Claire, it looks haunted." "Please tell me you're joking." I wiped paint from my hands. "It needs work. But it has good bones." "Good bones?" She shook her head. "You could have just asked Derek and me for help finding something decent. This is just sad." I smiled, a real smile this time. "Give it time, Vanessa." She drove away still laughing. I went back to painting. A month later, Vanessa threw a housewarming party for her new mansion. The invitation came through a family text chain. Mom said I should go, that it was important for family unity. I showed up in my nicest dress, which suddenly looked cheap compared to what everyone else wore. The house was enormous, marble floors, a curved staircase, a kitchen bigger than my entire apartment had been. Vanessa gave tours, pointing out custom features and name-dropping the interior designer. Guests oohed and awed appropriately. During dinner, she raised her wine glass. "I just want to say how blessed we are. Derek and I worked so hard for this." Her eyes found me across the table. "And Claire, sweetie, if things ever get too cramped in that little fixer-upper, you can always crash in our guest room. We have 3. Everyone laughed. I felt my face flush, but I kept my voice steady. "That's generous, Vanessa. You might regret that offer someday." She just smiled, certain I was joking. The detached garage at my property had caught my eye from the beginning. It was actually a small studio space, probably built as a guest house originally. With some work, it could be something useful. I researched rental income, studied Airbnb strategies, watched videos about property investment. The numbers made sense. If I could convert the garage into a rental unit, the income could help pay down the house faster. I spent my savings on basic renovations. Nothing fancy, but I made it clean and comfortable. I bought second-hand furniture, painted everything white to make it feel bigger, and added personal touches. My first guest booked for a weekend. I was terrified I'd mess something up, but they loved it. They left a 5-star review praising the cozy retreat and rebooked for the next month. I stared at my phone, reading their kind words 3 times. I was actually doing this. Building something real. More bookings followed. The money wasn't huge, but it was steady. I felt proud of every dollar earned. Sunday lunches continued. Vanessa always arrived with stories about her perfect life, expensive restaurants, shopping trips, private school accomplishments. Then one Sunday, she seemed off. Her smile was tight, her laugh forced. Derek barely spoke, just pushed food around his plate. "Everything okay?" Mom asked gently. "Fine," Vanessa snapped. "Just work stress. Derek's firm is going through some changes." Changes. That was an interesting word choice. I'd heard through a family friend that Derek's law firm had lost a major case, that money was suddenly tight. During dessert, Vanessa turned to me. "So how's your little house project going? Still playing landlord with that garage?" "It's going well," I said calmly. "Bookings are steady." "That's nice." Her voice was flat. "Must be fun playing business owner." Then she exploded. "You're probably thrilled we're struggling, huh? I see that look on your face." The table went silent. I met her eyes. "I'm not thrilled about anyone struggling, Vanessa. Not at all." She looked away first. My Airbnb income grew. I learned to manage bookings efficiently, respond quickly to guests, maintain high standards. Positive reviews piled up. Some guests became regulars, booking the same week every month. I reinvested every dollar, upgraded the mattress, bought better towels, installed smart locks for easier check-in. The property began attracting longer-term tenants, professionals in town for contract work who needed temporary housing. Then Mr. Wallace called. "Claire, I need to talk to you about the property." My heart sank. Was he raising the rent? Changing our agreement? "I'm moving into assisted living next month," he said. "My daughter thinks it's time. I want to sell the house, and I'm offering it to you first. Below market price, as we discussed." I could barely breathe. Below market? You've taken care of it. You've turned it into something special. It should be yours. The number he quoted was fair, possible if I stretched my finances and used my rental income. I said yes before he could change his mind. The closing process took 6 weeks. I signed papers, transferred money, and held my breath waiting for something to go wrong. But nothing did. The house became officially mine. I held the deed in my hands and cried. At the next Sunday lunch, Mom congratulated me. Dad seemed genuinely impressed. Vanessa's smile looked plastic. "So you actually bought it?" she asked. "The haunted house?" "I did," I said. "It's mine now." "Well, good for you." She sipped her wine. "How's your little Airbnb thing going? Still getting bookings?" "Better than expected, actually. I'm consistently booked out 2 months in advance." Something flickered in her eyes. Jealousy? Resentment? She changed the subject quickly, launching into a story about their upcoming vacation. But I noticed Derek didn't join in. He looked tired, worried. The cracks were showing. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart for Vanessa. Derek's law firm collapsed under a fraud investigation. He wasn't guilty of anything, but the firm's reputation was destroyed. Clients fled, cases dissolved, and suddenly Derek was unemployed with legal bills piling up. Their mansion went on the market. The for sale sign appeared overnight, like a wound. Vanessa showed up at our parents' house on a Tuesday afternoon, mascara running, designer bag clutched in her shaking hands. "We're staying here for a while," she announced, not asked. "Just temporarily. Until Derek finds something new." Mom hugged her. Dad nodded quietly. I happened to be visiting for dinner and watched it all unfold. Vanessa's kids ran through the house, already treating it like their own. Vanessa collapsed on the couch, crying about how unfair life was, how they'd done everything right. I stayed quiet, but inside, something twisted. Was this karma? Justice? I wasn't sure how to feel. Living with our parents didn't suit Vanessa. Within days, she complained about everything, the outdated kitchen, the small bedrooms, the lack of privacy. She and Mom argued constantly. She criticized Dad's TV habits. She treated their home like a hotel. I visited one evening to drop off some of Mom's favorite tea. Vanessa was in the kitchen, listing everything she'd change about the house if it were hers. Mom looked exhausted. When Vanessa left the room, Mom whispered to me, "She's impossible." And I think, "Claire, she might need somewhere else to stay soon. This isn't working." My stomach tightened. "What are you saying? Could she possibly, you have that garage space?" I didn't answer. I grabbed my keys and left, my mind racing. Was this really happening? Was Vanessa going to come to me for help? The thought should have made me happy. Instead, I just felt tired. 1 week later, my phone rang. Vanessa's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer. "Claire?" Her voice trembled. "Can we talk?" "About what?" Silence. Then, barely audible, "I need to ask you something." "Can I come over?" "Tomorrow," I said. "Come by at 2. I hung up and stared at my house, my beautiful, hard-earned house. The place Vanessa had mocked was about to become her lifeline. The irony tasted bitter and sweet at the same time. That night, I barely slept. I kept imagining how the conversation would go, what I'd say, how she'd react. Part of me wanted to refuse, to make her feel what she'd made me feel. But another part remembered we were still sisters, still family. By morning, I'd made my decision. Vanessa arrived exactly at 2. She drove her BMW, but it looked older somehow, less shiny. She climbed out slowly, like she was walking to an execution. I opened the door before she could knock. "Come in." She stepped inside and stopped dead. The house looked completely different from the last time she'd seen it. Fresh paint, refinished floors, tasteful furniture, plants in every corner. Sunlight poured through clean windows. "This is yours," she whispered. "Every inch," I said. "I worked for it." She walked through slowly, touching walls like she couldn't believe they were real. "Claire, this is beautiful." "I didn't know you could," she stopped herself. We sat in my living room. She twisted her hands in her lap. "Mom probably told you we're struggling," she said finally. She mentioned it. Derek's firm collapsed. We lost everything. The house sale won't even cover our debts. We're basically starting over. Tears filled her eyes. "I was horrible to you. I know that. But I'm desperate. Do you have space? Anywhere? We'll pay rent." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "You can stay in the garage unit. It's available." Moving day was awkward. Vanessa and Derek pulled up in a rental truck much smaller than the moving van they'd used for their mansion. Their kids looked confused about the tiny space. The garage unit was maybe 400 square feet. One room, a bathroom, a kitchenette. Everything Vanessa had once mocked me for living in. She stood in the doorway, her face pale. "This is cozy." "You said you wanted something cozy," I reminded her gently. Derek carried in boxes without complaining. He shook my hand. "Thank you, Claire." Seriously. We had nowhere else to go. Vanessa said nothing, just started unpacking with sharp, angry movements. Their kids asked why they couldn't stay in Aunt Claire's big house. Vanessa snapped at them to be grateful for what they had. I left them alone to settle in, but I could hear her complaining through the thin walls. "This place is so small. How are we supposed to live like this?" I smiled sadly. Now she knew exactly how it felt. The first week went okay. Vanessa kept to the garage unit, emerging only for bathroom trips to the main house since the unit's shower was tiny. Then she started getting comfortable. She left dishes in my kitchen sink. She used my streaming accounts without asking. She criticized my decorating choices, suggesting where I should put furniture in my own home. One evening, I overheard her on the phone with Mom. "She thinks she's better than me now. You should see how she acts, like she's doing me this huge favor." I was doing her a huge favor. But pointing that out would only make things worse. Derek, at least, was respectful. He cleaned up after himself, thanked me constantly, and kept the kids quiet. He'd gotten a job at a smaller firm making half his old salary. The pressure showed in his face. Vanessa, meanwhile, spent her days applying for positions she was overqualified for and complaining about how far she'd fallen. After 3 weeks, I couldn't take it anymore. I drafted a simple rental agreement, rules about shared spaces, quiet hours, cleaning expectations, and rent. I printed it out and brought it to the garage unit. Vanessa answered my knock, looking annoyed. "What's this?" she asked, taking the paper. "Rules," I said calmly. "If you're staying here, we need clear boundaries. This is a business arrangement." Her face flushed red. "Business arrangement? We're sisters. Then be a good sister and respect my space." She read through the document, her jaw tightening. "You're charging us rent?" "Derek just started working. The rent is fair. Half what you'd pay anywhere else. Sign it or find somewhere else to go." She stared at me for a long moment. Then, humiliated, she signed. Her hand shook as she wrote her name. "This is temporary," she said. "We won't be here long." "Take all the time you need," I replied. "As long as you follow the rules." Through a mutual friend, I learned the full extent of Vanessa and Derek's financial disaster. The mansion sale hadn't covered their debts. Derek's car had been repossessed. They were drowning in legal fees and credit card bills, teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. I didn't bring it up. It wasn't my business unless they made it my business. Meanwhile, my property continued thriving. I'd expanded my Airbnb operation, now managing bookings for both the garage unit once Vanessa eventually left and 2 other properties nearby for friends. The income was steady, impressive even. I hired someone to paint the main house's exterior, updated the landscaping, and added outdoor lighting. The property looked gorgeous, attracting even more attention online. Vanessa watched all of this from her tiny window. I saw her face sometimes, pressed against the glass, watching guests arrive at neighboring properties, watching me succeed. The bitterness must have been eating her alive. The explosion happened on a Friday night. I'd just finished hosting a small dinner for friends when Vanessa stormed into my house without knocking. "You're doing this on purpose," she shouted. Making everything perfect just to rub it in my face. My friends froze, wine glasses halfway to their lips. "Vanessa, this isn't the time." "When is the time?" "When you've humiliated me enough?" "You think you're better than us now, don't you?" I stood up, my voice quiet but firm. "No. I just learned to stop letting people make me feel small." "People? You mean me?" She laughed bitterly. "One lucky break and suddenly you're queen of the neighborhood." "Lucky?" I felt anger rising. "I worked for this. Every single day. While you were mocking me, I was building something real." She had no response. She just stood there, shaking with rage and shame. "Get out of my house, Vanessa. Now." She left, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. 3 days of silence followed. Vanessa didn't emerge from the garage unit. Derek apologized quietly, said she was struggling with the adjustment. Then our parents called both of us for a family meeting. Mom insisted Vanessa apologize properly. Dad backed her up, actually showing some spine for once. Vanessa sat across from me in our parents' living room, her eyes red from crying. "I'm sorry," she mumbled. "I was awful. I shouldn't have said those things. It didn't sound genuine, but it was something." "I forgive you," I said calmly. "But I need the garage unit back next month. I have long-term tenants lined up who've already paid a deposit." Her head snapped up. "Next month? Where are we supposed to go?" "That's not my problem, Vanessa. You've had time to figure things out. Claire, please. You can stay," I said. "But at the current market rate for the unit. Triple what you're paying now." The room went silent. Mom looked shocked. Dad looked impressed. Vanessa looked destroyed. Vanessa and Derek agreed to the new rate because they had no other choice. Derek picked up weekend shifts at a retail store. Vanessa finally got a job at a marketing agency, entry-level, making a fraction of what she used to earn. Their kids switched to public school. They sold jewelry, designer clothes, anything valuable. They learned to budget, to sacrifice, to survive on less. I watched it all without commenting. I wasn't cruel about it, I didn't gloat or rub it in. I just maintained my boundaries and continued building my life. At Sunday lunches, the dynamic had completely shifted. Mom asked me for advice about investments. Dad wanted tips on home repairs. Even Derek asked about my business strategy. Vanessa sat quietly, eating her food, saying little. The loud, confident sister who'd mocked my small apartment was gone. In her place sat someone humbled, someone learning hard lessons. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. 6 months passed. Vanessa and Derek stabilized somewhat, still struggling, but managing. They paid rent on time, followed the rules, and kept to themselves. The tension eased slowly. Vanessa stopped complaining about the small space. She actually started keeping it nice, adding small touches that made it feel like home. One evening, she knocked on my door. "Can I talk to you?" We sat on my porch as the sun set. She was quiet for a long time. "I've been thinking about why I was so mean to you," she said finally. "I think I was jealous. You were always smarter, more grounded. I married Derek and got the fancy house, and I thought that meant I'd won somehow. But I hadn't built anything real. It was all just surface. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet. This whole experience has been awful," she continued. "But maybe I needed it. To learn what actually matters." "Maybe," I agreed softly. We sat together in comfortable silence, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had my sister back. At a neighborhood gathering I hosted, people complimented my property transformation. Vanessa was there, helping serve drinks, blending into the background. "You've really built something special here," one neighbor said loudly. "It's inspiring to see someone work so hard and succeed." I saw Vanessa's face tighten, but she forced a smile. The public acknowledgement of her situation, her fall from grace, still stung. Later, as we cleaned up together, I said casually, "You know, it's amazing what can grow from a small place. A tiny apartment taught me what I was capable of." She nodded slowly. "I'm starting to understand that." For the first time, I believed she really did. One night, Vanessa knocked on my door late. Her eyes were red and swollen. "I need to say something," she said. "Really say it, not just because Mom made me." I let her in. We sat on my couch, the same couch she'd once said looked cheap. "I was awful to you, Claire. Not just at that Sunday lunch, but for years. I made you feel small because it made me feel big. I was jealous of how content you were with less, because I needed so much to feel valuable." She wiped her eyes. "You gave us a place to live when we had nothing. You could have turned us away, and no one would have blamed you. But you didn't. You're my sister," I said simply. "I know. And I forgot what that meant." She took a shaky breath. "I thought success meant having more. But watching you this past year, I realize it means being more. You built something real, something that matters. I just built expensive walls." We hugged, and this time it felt genuine. Healing. The bitter taste of revenge faded, replaced by something deeper, understanding, maybe even forgiveness. "Now you know what space really means," I said softly. "It's not about square footage." She nodded against my shoulder. "I'm finally learning." 8 months after moving in, Vanessa and Derek found a small condo they could afford. Nothing fancy, just a simple 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. But it was theirs, earned through actual hard work. Moving day came again. This time, the rental truck held furniture they'd chosen carefully, items that fit their new life. Their kids seemed happier somehow, less spoiled, more grounded. Vanessa hugged me tightly before leaving. "Thank you," she whispered. "For the roof, and the lesson." She handed me an envelope, a handwritten note inside thanked me properly, acknowledging everything I'd done and everything she'd learned. I stood in my yard as they drove away, watching new guests arrive at the rental unit. The property looked beautiful, gardens blooming, paint fresh, windows sparkling in the afternoon sun. I'd started with a small apartment and mockery at a Sunday lunch. Now I had a home, a business, and my self-respect back. More importantly, I had a sister who finally understood what strength actually looked like. Funny how life works. The same walls that once felt too small ended up being big enough for my peace, my pride, and yes, my revenge. Though in the end, it stopped being about revenge at all. It became about knowing my own worth and never letting anyone make me feel small again. I smiled and walked back to my beautiful house, the one everyone said looked haunted, the one I'd brought back to life, just like I'd brought myself back to life. Some spaces are worth fighting for. And sometimes, the smallest spaces teach the biggest lessons.